Okay, in this video, we are gonna work on the hypothesis test on a last category or fourth category, which is the population proportion. So our parameter of interest here is the population proportion. So I'm gonna write down here, we are in the category number 4. And we want to find out that what's gonna be the steps of the hypothesis. So the first one is the parameter of interest, which is proportion here. So I'm going to write down proportion. And step number 2 was that state the null hypothesis. For this one, we can have again one-sided and two-sided. So for the one-sided, we would say that our null hypothesis is P equal to P1, P null. That's for the null hypothesis. For the alternative hypothesis, what we're going to do is like that. We're going to write down alternative hypothesis, P and P null, they're not equal. So that's going to be my alternative hypothesis. So the next one, the next step is that find out the amount, like specify the amount of the alpha. So which is most of the time we consider 5%, but sometimes we are looking for the confidence interval, like 99% confidence interval, so alpha it would be 1%. But we would say that, so we want to specify our alpha. It's similar to the previous categories that we had. But the next one is that we want to work on the appropriate test statistic. So for this one, the test statistic that we have here, it's very similar to the first and second category that we had, which we were interested to find out mu with the situation that we have. We know the variance or we don't know the variance. So this one with the test statistic for the category number 4 for proportion, we are gonna work with the Z table again, very similar to the first, especially first category. So Z null. But the equation that we have is a little different because the standard error of the proportion is different, so, comparing to the mean, mu or mean of the proportion of the population. So here, for the Z null, we would write down it's like x minus n p null, and then on the denominator, the equation that we have is going to be a square root of the n p null 1 minus p null that we have. So we are going to have this equation for the test statistic, and it's different than the equations that we had for the previous ones. So we have the number 5. Number 6 is step number 6 was state the rejection region that you would have. So for the rejection region, we will say that if it's two-sided, we want to make sure that the Z null that we have here, it's going to be like if it's going to be less than the Z of the that we find out from the alpha. So the rejection region, so it would say that reject null hypothesis if the Z null that I have find here, so I'm talking about the rejection region, right? So is that my Z null, it should be greater than the value of the Z at the half of the alpha. So it's greater than Z at half of the alpha, or you would say that your Z null is less than minus Z half of the alpha. So this for the two-sided. If it was one-sided, the same things that we had before is like that. You would, instead of half of the alpha, you're going to write down alpha. So that's our rejection one. Rejection region. The next step is the calculation or computation. So what we're going to do is like we're going to find out the amount of the x. Like we're going to put all of the numbers from our sample into this test statistic. So it's the computation, And number 8 is the conclusion. So with the conclusion, what are we going to do? In the computation step, we found that Z null, right? And from the alpha, we go to the table and find out Z at the half of the alpha. And we can compare this Z null with the Z half of the alpha and make the conclusion of the rejecting the null hypothesis or failing to reject the null hypothesis. So our conclusion is going to be reject the null hypothesis. And null hypothesis, the rejection happens when we have like Z null greater than of the Z of the half of the alpha or less than minus half of the alpha, or fail to reject the null hypothesis. Even when we are looking at the graph for this one, it's going to be something like this. Look at here. So we are looking for the normal distribution of Z, and let's say this is normally distributed. It's like bell-shaped curve. So what I'm going to do is that I have two of, like, let's say these two ones. This is the Z at the half of the alpha. Here is 0 in the center, and here is minus Z half of the alpha. So I'm going to compare my Z null. So if my Z null is here, for example, right? So this is the rejection criteria. So here, this one is the criteria. So this area is the rejection region. Or if my Z null was here, so I would be in the rejection one. Our mu is our proportion, our mu, our chi-square, most of the time, when we are talking about these things, the one that we have in the center is the H null. H null is in that part. For example, for this one, P is equal to P null is this area, right? So whatever is outside that is going to be our rejection region. So this is the last categories for the hypothesis test that we had so far. I'm gonna post another video on the example of this one. So we're gonna work on an example of this one. Make sure that after watching this video, you would go and work on the example. That it's the next video.